What's going on, guys? It is Brandon back here again today with another season preview. Finally doing a second one in the same day. I said I'd do it a couple days ago, but now I'm finally caught up after this one. This one should be uploaded tonight. I'm doing this following the Seattle one. I did that earlier today. Then I watched a lot of football today, and now we're here. The St. Louis Blues, their GM, Doug Armstrong, one of the longest tenured GMs, if not the longest in the league, at 16, going into his 16th season. Then you have Coach Jim Montgomery, who took over midway through last season, so he's technically going into year two, but it's his first full year behind the bench of the St. Louis Blues. On the first line, you have Buchnevich, $8 million until 2031. Robert Thomas, $8.125 million until 2031. And I don't think he'll end up in the first line, but Snuggerud is up there, RFA until 2027. Then you have Dylan Holloway, 2.29 until 2026, where he will be an RFA. He's going to get some money. Braden Shen, $6.5 million until 2028. And Kyrou, same exact deal as Thomas, $8.125 million until 2031. Then you have Jake Neighbors, $3.75 million until 2027, where he will be an RFA. Pius Suter comes over, $4.125 million until 2027. And Bukestad, $1.75 million until 2027. The fourth line, it's a solid fourth line. Toropchenko, $1.7 million until 2026. Oscar Sundqvist, $1.5 million until 2026. And the Australian stallion himself, Walker, $775,000 until 2026. I say that because he's the only Australian in the NHL. Forward depth, there's some here. You have Matthew Joseph, $2.95 million until 2026, and Alex Texier, $2.1 million until 2026, where he will be an RFA. So there is some cap space here all around. You have three expiring deals here. Holloway is expiring, so that's another some money you have to spend on Holloway. You have Texier and Joseph's contract both expiring, so you also have some cap space making free there. You have Lucic on a professional tryout. That was a stunner when that happened there. Alexandrov's an RFA in 2026. You have Luff, you have McGing, and then your three young guys. You have Dvorsky, who's an RFA in 2028. Zach Dean's an RFA in 2026, and then they selected Carbonneau in this year's draft. So that's their youth, and maybe Carbonneau won't be in the lineup this year. Dvorsky, I think, should become as he played 2 games last season, so we'll probably start the year in the AHL and get brought up throughout the season. And then Dean should be another guy who we see making his debut soon enough. On the defensive side, you have Cam Fowler, who had vintage playoff performance with the Blues this season. $4 million until 2026. Parayko, $6.5 million until 2030. However, it's coming off what many consider to be his best season. You have Broberg, $4.58 million until 2026, where he will be an RFA. You have Falk, $6.5 million until 2027. Tyler Tucker, $925,000 until 2027. And then Mel Yu comes over, RFA in 2026. Depth on the blue line, you have Kessel, who's an RFA in 2026, and Skinner, who is also an RFA in 2026. That is Hunter Skinner. In net, you have Binnington, $6 million until 2027, and Hofer, $3.4 million until 2027, where he will be an RFA. So the cap is a bit close on this team, getting a little bit of cap space, but then with that cap space, you have to pay some of your guys. You have to pay Holloway, you have to pay Melu, some of your depth you have to pay. So it's not going to feel like a lot of cap space, even with the cap going up as much as it is. So the complete list of additions, by my count, I think it was just Pius Suter, Bukestad, and Melu were the three big ones. Subtractions, Ryan Suter, who played all 82 games last year, surprisingly, who's still a free agent, one of the only remaining members of that 2003 draft class. Bolduc goes to Montreal for Melu, and that was a head scratcher because Bolduc looks like a really good young player coming up. St. Louis, though, they need some young defensemen in their lineup. Fowler, Parayko, Falk, three much older defensemen. So Melu kind of inserts some youth into that lineup, but still Bolduc. You put Bolduc up there, and Shen's getting older. You could have had a really good, really deadly top six if you add him to that part of the lineup. And not to mention you have Neighbors coming up as well. So I guess you did have a plethora of forward talent that you could afford to give up Bolduc. Foxa goes back to Dallas, and then Nick Leddy gets claimed on waivers by the San Jose Sharks. In terms of, I should have mentioned they have no goaltending depth. There was no notable goaltenders. So if Binnington or Hofer does go down, we'll see if one of their goaltenders in the minors can step up and be a notable third goaltender. This season they finished 5th in the division. It was good enough for the second wild card, so it was close. It was between them and Calgary. Both had 96 points, but they ended up having the tiebreaker. They missed the playoffs in 24, but in 25 they went 44, 30, and 8 for 96 points for 15th in the league. Calgary is actually listed as having a better points than them. They're listed at 14th, so St. Louis listed at 15th is interesting. But yeah, not really much to say about the St. Louis Blues. They're a team they got pieces to do a lot. They don't really have a superstar, but they're just a good, solid, all-around team. You can't really find many faults. Their goaltending with Binnington and Hofer, solid. Defense, Parayko, Fowler, Broberg, Falk, that's a decent top 4. You have a young youth in there with Mailloux and Kessel and Skinner. Up front, you have a solid top 6. Buchnevich, Thomas, Shannon, Kyrou, some more of the veterans. Snuggerud, Holloway, Neighbors, some of the youth. Fourth line, that's very physical. Not a lot of weaknesses aside from just a really good star player. Maybe Dvorsky could become that. Maybe Carbonneau could become that. We'll see once they start getting into the lineup in a couple years. Especially Carbonneau is going to take a couple years. But we'll see. So for St. Louis fans, my question to you is, what do you think of your team? Do you think this team needs a move? Or what changes need to be made? Because their collapse in Game 7 last season, they weren't expected to beat the Jets, but when you're up 3-1 with 2 minutes left against the President's Trophy winner, you're expected to close it out. And they weren't able to do that. But if they were, it would have been hilarious. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.